It started with the letter. After my grandmother passed, I wasn't expecting much. A modest inheritance, a few old photographs, maybe the deed to the crumbling family home I hadn't visited in years. The reading of the will was formal and dry, until the notary pulled out a smaller envelope near the end. It was yellowed with age, brittle around the corners. "This was to be given to you personally, Mr. Caldwell," he said. "Your grandmother left strict instructions, said you'd understand when the time came." My name, Caleb, was written on the front in careful script I recognized immediately, her handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a photograph. "If you're reading this, Caleb, then the house has started calling again." The handwriting was unmistakably hers, though older, shakier, but it wasn't referring to her house. "You won't remember it, not clearly, but you were there once when you were small. It doesn't let go of people easily. I couldn't face it again, but maybe you can. You must." The photograph was black and white, faded. It showed a towering house surrounded by dense forest, windows like hollow eyes, a slanted roof, leaning like a broken crown. The trees around it were warped by time, as if recoiling from the structure. There was no address, just a hand-drawn map on the back. I followed the map 3 hours north, past the last gas station where the attendant stared too long and spoke too little. The road narrowed into a single lane hemmed in by towering trees, their bare branches arching overhead like skeletal fingers. As the miles slipped by, the landscape grew stranger. The GPS blinked and died. The air thickened. The world around me began to feel suspended, like I was traveling through a photograph left too long in the sun, faded, quiet, unreal. A storm gathered slowly, almost shyly. First came a breeze that soured into a damp wind. Then the skies grayed, and rain began to fall in thin, slanted sheets. Not heavy, just steady, relentless, the kind of rain that worked its way into your bones. I turned the windshield wipers to their highest setting, but they barely helped. Water slicked the road in shimmering veins. The forest pressed closer, roots bursting from the mud like the fingers of something buried alive. With every bend in the road, my thoughts grew more chaotic, half-remembered rhymes from childhood, flashes of faces I couldn't place, the image of my mother packing a suitcase in silence. I gripped the wheel tighter, blinking hard to keep from imagining shapes among the trees. Fog uncoiled from the underbrush and slithered across the pavement like it had been waiting. My headlights flickered. The engine made a sound I didn't like. Even before I saw the house, I felt it. A pressure in my chest, a drop in air temperature, a sudden awareness of every beat of my heart, and then it emerged. The house stood at the edge of the clearing like a monument abandoned by time. The trees circled it at a respectful distance, as if afraid to get too close. Exactly as in the photo. Porch sagging with age, shutters half torn, the smell of damp rot and cold iron in the air. No birds, no insects, just the wind moving too slowly to be natural. I parked at the edge of the clearing. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. The house was waiting. I followed the map 3 hours north, past the last gas station and into the forgotten remains of a logging town called Ashwood Hollow. As the landscape transformed, the sky darkened prematurely. The trees became skeletal and gnarled, clawing at the narrow road. The deeper I went, the more my thoughts turned inward. Snippets of nursery rhymes, half-remembered childhood fears, and my mother's soft voice surfaced like bubbles in deep water. I hadn't thought of her voice in years. Fog coiled through the woods like it had a mind of its own. My headlights caught shapes between the trees, too symmetrical to be natural, too still to be human. Even before I saw the house, I felt it. A pressure in my chest, a tightening in my scalp. The house appeared just before dusk, waiting at the edge of the forest like it had always been there, like it had been waiting for me specifically. Exactly as in the photo. Porch sagging with age, shutters half torn. The smell of damp rot and cold iron in the air. No birds, no insects, just the wind moving too slowly to be natural. I parked at the edge of the clearing. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. The house was waiting. The front door opened with a groan loud enough to wake the dead. Dust hung thick in the air, sheets draped over old furniture like funeral shrouds. My boots echoed against wood warped by years of neglect. The air was colder inside, wrong, not like disuse. Like vacancy, emptiness made real. I wandered through the rooms slowly. The wallpaper was faded and cracked, but in some places tiny handprints had been smudged into the dust. Not mine. I picked the least dusty room and unrolled my sleeping bag. My phone had no signal. I told myself I'd just stay the night, take photos, honor whatever weird sense of obligation had compelled my grandmother to send me here. That night I dreamed of whispers, soft, urgent, childlike voices whispering a name, my name. Then another name I hadn't heard in years, Marla. I woke to find the door ajar, the room colder than before. My boots were no longer beside my bed. They were neatly arranged at the front door. The following morning I found the first drawing. It was on the hallway mirror, crude, childlike scrawls made in what looked like charcoal or soot. A house, a stick figure, and beside it, another figure drawn in dark, violent loops. Its head was nothing but a scribbled mass. I reached out to touch the glass, and the black smears transferred to my fingertips. Real. I looked around for signs of ash or chalk, but found nothing. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. When I looked again, the drawing was gone. That day, I explored deeper into the house. The floor plan made less and less sense the farther I went. A hallway I was sure led to the kitchen now ended at a blank wall. A second-floor room seemed to have a window from the outside, but none from within. The air changed depending on the room, some spaces stale with old air and decay, others freezing with a breath that didn't belong to me. In one room, I found a rocking chair swaying. It stopped the moment I stepped inside. That night, the clocks began ticking, all at once. A cacophony of mismatched rhythms, tick, 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 echoing through the walls. I hadn't seen a single clock in the house, and yet the sound was everywhere. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding my breath, listening. Then 3 slow, heavy knocks on the front door. I crept down the stairs, heart thudding. The door was already open. Outside, the welcome mat was soaked, the floor wet with muddy footprints, bare footprints, small, leading into the living room. On the third day, I found the basement door. It was behind a bookcase I accidentally bumped while trying to find a light switch. The whole thing creaked forward, revealing a recessed wooden door. Every inch of the frame had been sealed with rows of rusted nails, dozens of them, some driven in at crooked angles, like whoever did it was in a panic. I pressed my ear to the wood. There was a sound behind it. Faint, rhythmic, breathing. I didn't open it. Not yet. That night, the dreams intensified. I was running down endless corridors. Every door I opened led me back to the same place. An empty crib with the sheets still warm. A voice was whispering my name, but it was a child's voice, a girl's voice. Marla, she kept saying, almost chidingly. You left me here. When I woke, the walls were wet with condensation. My sleeping bag was at the other end of the room. My hands were dirty, soil under the fingernails, a streak of mud across my cheek. Something was changing. Something was waking up. I lasted one more day before I couldn't take it anymore. I spent hours pacing, watching the light move across the warped floorboards. I'd blocked the basement door with furniture, but it didn't help. I could hear it now, scratching, like fingernails against the inside of a coffin. Around dusk, I found another drawing. This one wasn't on a mirror. It was carved into the wall beside the fireplace. Deep, gouged lines. The same figures, the stick person, the house, the scribbled thing, but now the stick figure was missing its head. The wood was still curling from the cut like it had just been made. I didn't wait for nightfall. I grabbed the crowbar from my car and returned to the door. Every nail screamed as I tore it out. The metal snapped and twisted, resisting me. One even tore through the skin of my hand, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. When the final plank fell, the basement door opened on its own. A wave of heat poured out, not warmth, heat, like breath from a furnace. It smelled like rust and rotting leaves and something older. The stairs creaked under my weight as I descended, flashlight trembling in my grip. At the bottom was a room unlike the rest of the house. Circular, stone-lined, vaulted ceiling like a mausoleum, and in the center, a mouth, carved directly into the stone floor. Massive, at least 6 feet wide. Its teeth were jagged, made from fossilized bone and splintered wood. The lips were stone too, but they moved. They breathed. I approached slowly. I didn't want to, but my feet moved anyway. The closer I got, the louder the whispers became, not external ones, but inside me. Thoughts that weren't mine, names I'd never heard, a language I somehow understood. I was standing at the edge when I saw something reflected in the slick stone, my face as a child, crying. Then it blinked and smiled. The moment the reflection smiled, the air snapped. The light from my flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in a smothering blackness, broken only by the soft, steady pulse of the breathing stone mouth. I backed away, but my feet wouldn't move. It was as if the floor had taken hold of me, nor remembered me. I closed my eyes, but it was too late. The memories hit me like a flood. I was a child again. My mother and I in the back seat of her old car. Rain on the windshield. She's crying, but trying to hide it with a smile. "Just for a little while, Caleb," she said. "We just need a safe place for a while." The house, pristine then, rose through the fog like a cathedral. I remember stepping inside and hearing something click, like a lock turning. I remember waking up to her whispering strange words under her breath, drawing symbols in salt around my bed. And then silence. The dream twisted. My mother is screaming. Something is pulling her toward the basement. She's clawing at the doorframe, shouting my name, and then gone. No struggle, no blood, just gone. Then I'm older, standing in this same basement. The mouth is smaller, closed, but it breathes, and I'm holding something. A doll, a photo, a name cuts through it all. Marla. It's not just a name, it's a weight, a loss. My sister, the one I forgot, the one the house took, the one I never remembered until now. I fell to my knees as the memories choked the air from my lungs. The mouth remained unmoving, but the pulse in the stone had grown stronger, more desperate, like a beast waiting to be fed. My thoughts were no longer my own. Flashes of other lives, children whispering secrets in dead languages, mothers offering jewelry and teeth into the pit, families vanishing into the earth, rushed through my mind like a storm. The mouth wasn't just old, it was hungry. It was a wound in the world, and someone had to keep it closed. I tried to run, my legs barely obeyed. As I reached the stairs, the whispers turned to words. Marla. My blood froze. She's still here. I turned. The mouth was no longer just a mouth. Shadows rose from the jagged teeth, stretching upward, vague human shapes twitching unnaturally, reaching. One of them had small hands. Marla. She stood among the others, no longer a child, but not yet a ghost. Her eyes locked on mine, not accusing, not angry, just pleading. I took a step toward her, but the floor cracked, the house groaned, the ceiling pulsed. Blood, or something like it, dripped between the stones. I understood then. The house hadn't just taken her. It had held her, kept her, waiting for the rest of me. I stepped closer. My hand trembled, reaching without meaning to. Marla's form flickered like a bad signal, her eyes silently pleading for release. I wanted to speak, to promise her I'd find another way. But the whispers drowned out my voice. The house no longer breathed. It hummed, low and ancient, a pressure in my teeth, my bones, a chorus of forgotten tongues rising from the cracks. I dropped to my knees. My right hand burned. The skin along my wrist had begun to split, as if the house was peeling me open. Blood poured freely now. I gritted my teeth, my vision swimming. The blade lay before me. The same old hunting knife my grandmother used to keep in the kitchen. I didn't put it there. A part of me knew it had always been waiting. The house needed a piece of me, and I needed Marla. I tightened a belt around my arm, just below the elbow. My fingers were already numb. "I'm sorry," I whispered, to Marla, to whoever I used to be. Then I brought the knife down. Once, twice. The pain was a scream I couldn't release. My vision went white, my mouth foamed. But I kept cutting. The bones cracked, the blade caught, and when it was done, when my hand hit the floor with a sickening slap, the mouth opened. It sighed. A warm wind poured from the pit. The shadows recoiled. Marla stepped forward and smiled. A light, faint and amber, filled the chamber. For the first time I could breathe. She stepped toward me, kissed my forehead, and vanished like fog in the sun. I passed out beside the mouth. When I awoke, it was closed. The house was quiet. I awoke on the grass, dew-soaked and shivering beneath a pale gray sky. My vision was foggy, but the pain was sharp and clear. My right arm ended in a tightly wound bandage, the stump burning like it had been kissed by fire. The house behind me was silent. No breath, no creaking timbers, no whispering, just stone, wood, and rot. I pushed myself upright. My car sat where I left it, mud-splattered, crooked but whole. Its doors were shut, its windows intact. The key was already in the ignition. I didn't question it. The engine coughed to life with a reluctant growl. I gripped the wheel with my left hand and drove, tires crunching over the gravel and roots until the trees swallowed the house from view. Only then did I cry. Not from pain, not from loss, but from something deeper, relief that felt like guilt. I kept driving until the road turned back to pavement, until I saw signs of life again. A gas station, a billboard, a dog barking in the distance. Normal, almost, but even now, days later, I feel the pull. When I close my eyes, I see her, Marla, watching from behind glass. Not sad, not angry, just there. And sometimes when the wind shifts, I think I hear the mouth sighing. Hospitals stitched what they could. No one asked too many questions. The stump was clean, surgically precise, too precise, some said, but no one pressed me. I gave them a story about getting lost in the woods and a wild animal. They nodded. They didn't believe me, but they nodded. Back home, nothing felt the same. My apartment was too quiet. The ticking of the wall clock made my skin crawl. I threw it away after the second night. I started sleeping with the lights on. Therapists listened patiently as I told fragments of what had happened. Not the whole truth, just enough to test their reactions. The moment I mentioned the basement, the mirror, or Marla's name, they'd shift, adjust their glasses, recommend medication. I took the pills. They didn't help. Some nights, I wake gasping, the phantom pain in my missing hand pulsing like it remembers the knife. Sometimes I catch myself looking into mirrors too long, trying to see past my own reflection. Once I did. It wasn't me staring back. Not really. The eyes were too dark, too empty, and the smile came a second too late. I haven't looked in a mirror since. Every so often, I dream of the house. Not the real house, the version from my childhood, clean, bright, safe, and I hear her, Marla, laughing, running just out of reach, like she forgives me. But when I wake, the silence is heavier, hungrier. The house let me go, but I don't think it's done with me yet.